Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror franchise movie review video as part of my current January 2024 series, where I'm taking a look at the entire Omen franchise, all five movies existing. So today we're going to take a look at the fifth and final movie for this series, and that is the 2006 remake of The Omen. And as I mentioned in my intro video, I actually saw this movie in the theater on a first date, believe it or not, back in June of 2006. I don't think I saw it on 6606 when it came out, but yeah, I do remember seeing it in the theater. I can't say that it left a huge impact on me, which we'll get to in my review here. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the 2006 Omen remake. So, The Omen, also known as Omen 666, is a 2006 American supernatural horror film directed by John Moore and written by David Seltzer. The fifth installment in the Omen series, it is a remake of the 1976 film of the same title, which was also written by Seltzer. This version stars Julia Stiles, Liv Schreiber, Mia Farrow, David Thewlis, Pete Postlewaite, Michael Gambon, and Seamus Davy Fitzpatrick in his future feature film debut. Geez, that's a tongue twister there for me. Um, if you want to know about the plot or the synopsis, just go back and look at my review video for the original Omen movie, because it's exactly the same movie. Basically, Robert Thorne's an American diplomat stationed in Italy who finds out that his son was stillborn, as his wife doesn't know. She's still in the hospital recovering. And he ends up adopting this orphaned newborn, who, of course, ends up being Damien. And it goes from there, exactly like the original movie. He's Robert Thorne's named as deputy ambassador to the court of St. James in the United Kingdom, following the death of the previous ambassador in a suspicious fire. Robert assumes the position and settles into a large estate just outside London, and then, of course, disturbing events begin, including the suicide of Damien's nanny, who sees a black dog and makes eye contact with it at his birthday party. So, yeah, exact same story, exact same premise as the 1976 Omen movie. As far as the cast goes, we have Liv Schreiber as Robert Thorne, Julia Stiles as Catherine Thorne, Mia Farrow as Mrs. Willa Blaylock, Seamus Davy Fitzpatrick as Damien Thorne, David Thewlis as Keith Jennings, Pete Postlewaite as Father Brennan, and Michael Gambon as Bugenhagen Bugenhagen, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's kind of the setup, the premise, and the cast for the 2006 remake of The Omen. In case you can't tell, this is basically well, I'm not going to say it's a shot for shot remake, because the shots aren't exactly the same, but it is a script to script remake. It's a dialogue to dialogue kind of remake, scene to scene remake, for the most part, with very little variances from the original movie. And well, I don't want to compare it directly to the original movie. It's almost impossible not to, because it is the original movie, just made 30 years later in a more modern, sort of a modern style and flair to it, if you will. But let's just go ahead and get into my review, starting with the things that I liked about the movie. And I'm going to start with the two main leads here. I think Liv Schreiber and Julia Stiles, I thought they both did a really good job in portraying these roles, these characters. I thought they both brought an emotional edge and believability to these characters that's really important in this type of movie, because they start out as this young couple that's just trying to have kids, and they can't, or they lose one, whatever. And then Damien comes into their life, and of course a lot of bad things happen to him. So you end up caring about him, and that's because of the portrayal, the performances by Liv Schreiber and Julia Stiles. I didn't feel like they copied the original actors from the original Omen movie. They kind of made it their own, especially Liv Schreiber as Robert Thorne. But I thought I enjoyed both of their performances, and like I said, I thought they brought an emotional edge and believability to where, as a viewer, we really feel for him in the situation that they end up in. So that's the first positive I can say. I think the movie's really well shot. There's no doubt about that. It has great cinematography. it's really nice to look at with a modern look, with a modern shooting style, modern camera work and cinematography. So that's probably kind of to be expected. I mean, the original movie cinematography was fine, but it was made in the mid '70s as opposed to the mid 2000s. So obviously, some of the cinematography is going to be a bit better in this remake. So it does look good. There actually were a couple of the on-screen kills, which the kills are pretty well. One of the kills is pretty much the same, but the way they're presented is different. And so there were a couple of on-screen kills that I actually enjoyed more in this movie. To be honest with you, I thought they were more visually appealing. In terms of the one kill where the priest who warns Robert Thorne, Liv Schreiber's character in this movie, about who his son is and his wife's in danger and things of that nature. And then, of course, he gets the pole through the chest death. I don't know. It wasn't any different in terms of how it happened necessarily. Well, it is a little bit different in terms of how it happened because this pole ends up going through like some like a stained glass window, and so not only does the pole come through, but you get all these shards of stained glass that also hit him as well. And I thought it was a very visually cool look and death for that one. So I did enjoy that a little bit more, I think, than the first one. Not that there was anything overly wrong with the first one. And then the death of Catherine, I thought towards the end, had the emotional weight and tension in terms of her death. I felt a bit more in this movie, even though I do like the death of Catherine in the original movie. I actually think it's a lot creepier in a lot of ways in terms of the darkness and the shadow, and Mrs. Blaylock coming out of the darkness and confronting her face to face before pushing her out of a window. In this movie, she doesn't get pushed out of a window, but of course, Mrs. Blaylock does lead her to her demise, but she does it in a way that's more hospital related with this forced air embolism that she puts in her IV basically. And I was just, I thought Julia Stiles did a great job with the emotion and just the fear, having her mouth covered, trying to yell out for help, and really there's nothing she can do about it because I think her leg's broken, her arm's broken, so she's trying to wince as much as she can, and nobody can hear her. And so I thought she did a really good job, and I just thought the scene overall was it was definitely it had a lot more emotional weight and relevance to it, I thought, than even though, like I said, I do enjoy the death in the first movie, it's completely different. So I wanted to bring those two up. I did enjoy those deaths and the spins that they put on them in this movie. And then finally, I thought some of the modern effects are a bit better in this movie, which again, like the cinematography, is probably to be expected because we're in the 2000s now. I thought, like, regarding the kills, like the one I mentioned with the priest, and then also like the weather and the rain that's going on before the priest gets stabbed with the pole. I thought you could tell the effects were definitely more modern, and so some people might enjoy that more. That tend to enjoy more modern movies as opposed to the older school kind of stuff. So those are my pros for the Omen remake from 2006. As far as the cons go, by all accounts, this is exactly the same as the original movie, at least in terms of the script, the dialogue, the scenes. There's just not a lot that's different here other than what I mentioned. The very few changes or differences. Like I said, the dialogue, the scenes, the kills play out exactly the same way, with the exception of the one in the hospital and everything in between. So why watch this movie again? That's my question, I guess, rhetorically. But I mean, if I want to watch this story, I'm going to watch the original Omen movie. And you'll know more why once I get into the rest of my cons here. But that's a big one. The fact that I'm not going to say it's as much of a shot-for-shot remake as Psycho was, because Gus Van Sant, that literally was a shot-for-shot remake. That was a carbon copy. This isn't quite a carbon copy to that degree, but it's close. It's close enough where it's painfully obvious in terms of not having any originality or creative, other than that one that I mentioned, the hospital kill with Catherine. That's really the only kind of twist they put on anything that's different here. And I thought they could have done more in that regard. So, just having those shot-for-shot, script-for-script remakes, I don't really understand the point of them. I have to say, I didn't think Mia Farrow was nearly as strong in the role of Mrs. Blaylock as well. The original actress knocked that role out of the park. In fact, I thought she stole the movie in that original film. but I don't. Mia Farrow's a good actress, but she just doesn't do that in this movie. She's just not as creepy overall the way she's presented. I also don't think she hits the dialogue quite as well as the original actress did. I just thought overall it was a lesser portrayal of that iconic role, and that certainly didn't help this movie because that, like I said, that role was so iconic in the original. I also didn't care for the young actor. I guess it's Seamus Davy Fitzpatrick, who played Damien Thorne in this movie, especially in comparison to the young actor who played him in the original. I just felt like this actor was trying a little too hard. Every time the camera was on him, he'd have those mean looks, like when the animals are freaking out when they're at the zoo and stuff. It's just like I can't explain it, but the original actor just did such a good job because it was much more of a sort of more of a nuanced, leveled performance. I thought for that character because in the original movie, you have to remember Damien's not really the villain. I mean, he is, but it's the people around him that are trying to protect him that are the scary ones. At least in the original movie, from the dogs to the Mrs. Blaylock and some of the others. And the dogs weren't as intimidating in this movie as they were in the original. As I mentioned, Mia Farrow wasn't in that role as Mrs. Blaylock, and neither is Damien because again, that young actor's trying too hard. He's trying to show how evil and mean he is, and like you just needed more of a nuanced performance like you got from the original actor from the original Omen movie. So that was something that I didn't like. The biggest thing with this movie, though, it is a carbon copy for the most part as far as the script goes to the original movie, 97% of it. But it's not as good because this movie doesn't have any of the dread or the foreboding, the atmosphere that the original Omen movie did. That's what really made that a classic. It wasn't so much the script or the story. Well, that's interesting. It was the tension building. It was the atmosphere that original movie had. You don't have any of that here, other than, like I said, with Julia Stiles' death in the hospital as Catherine. But other than that, there is no tension. There's no build up. I mean, a prime example is Mrs. Blaylock towards the end. There's no big fight or struggle with Robert Thorne. He basically pushes her down and kicks her in the face once, takes Damien out of the house, and then runs her over with the car. I mean, there's just you don't have that atmosphere, that build up that went along with the great score. And the score is fine in this movie, so that's not really an issue. But it just doesn't have what the original movie had. It's the missing ingredient in this movie. This movie feels much more like a higher budget end Hollywood kind of movie put out in the 2000s. That's exactly what it is. And a lot of what made the original movie so good was it wasn't a high budget movie. It was a classic because of the foreboding atmosphere. And this is just kind of a drab, okay, standard remake, mid 2000s horror movie. And that's just kind of how I view it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's not a terrible movie. It's not the worst movie ever made or anything like that. It's not even the worst remake ever made. But it's another one of those remakes. Like, why would I go back and watch this again? Other than if I was doing an Omen, um, if I was watching all of them. What's the word I'm looking for? A party, a watch party. And even that, I'm not sure I would need to watch just because I'll have seen the same movie twice, basically. Only one that was actually good. So I don't know. I'm going to give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. I think the technical aspects of it are good. I like the leads, as I mentioned. I should mention too that some of the other side characters are good as well. I guess that's one thing I can add to my pros. The two guys from the Harry Potter series, David Thewlis and Michael Gambon. Michael Gambon's only in one scene, but I like him. David Thewlis as Keith Jennings, the photographer. I really liked him. I thought he did just about as well as David Warner did. Maybe not quite as well, but it was close. And then also Pete Postlewaite, I have to say, I think he was actually better than the guy that portrayed Father Brennan from the first movie. So yeah, the performances are good for the most part. The technical aspects are good. They have a couple little twists or changes that I enjoy, but not enough of them. And like I said, it's a script for script remake. It doesn't have any of the charm or the foreboding atmosphere of the original movie. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's again, it's worth a watch if you've never seen it before. But it's if somebody asked me which one I should watch, the Omen from 1976 or the remake, it's the Omen from 1976 every time. So that's my thoughts on the Omen remake from 2006. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews. Well, I guess my upcoming video for this series is me ranking these 5 Omen movies, which will be coming up in a few days here. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, though, so you don't miss not only that video, but what I have coming up in February, March, April, all the way through the end of the year. Some great horror content for you guys. So hope everybody's doing well with their start to the year. Hope you're enjoying this franchise horror series. And of course, stay scared. Bye.